The bell rings, sharp and familiar, and for a moment we are back there. Polished floors gleam under strip lights, desks sit in neat rows, and coats hang patiently on pegs by the door. It all feels comfortingly ordinary. Yet here's the quiet shock. Many everyday school rules from 1970s Britain would simply not be allowed today. Things we accepted without question now feel astonishing. You may even struggle to explain them to younger ears. Step inside this vanished classroom, because what once felt normal now seems almost unreal, and the difference might surprise you more than expected today. To understand why those classrooms felt the way they did, we have to remember the Britain of the 1970s. This was a country still shaped by post-war thinking, where order, routine, and respect were seen as foundations of a good life. Many parents had grown up with rationed books, shared bedrooms, and hand-me-downs, so structure felt reassuring rather than restrictive. Schools mirrored that mindset perfectly. Teachers were authority figures, not facilitators. Rules existed because rules were needed, not because they required explanation. You lined up, you kept quiet, you followed instructions, and rarely did anyone ask why. Most families trusted schools to shape children into dependable adults, and schools took that responsibility seriously. Compared to today, there was little discussion around feelings or individual preferences. Fairness meant everyone was treated the same, not differently. Looking back now, it can feel strict, even puzzling. Yet at the time, it felt sensible and safe. Those quiet classrooms reflected a wider Britain that valued order over debate, certainty over choice, and believed firm boundaries helped children find their place. That unspoken agreement between home and school defined daily life, shaping habits and expectations that lasted long after the final bell for many families. Most people remember these rules instantly, yet few realize how unusual they now seem. In 1970s schools, silence in the corridors was absolute. You walked in straight lines, eyes forward, shoes echoing softly on polished floors. Talking was for the playground, not the space between lessons. No one complained. It was simply understood. Uniforms followed the same logic. Everything had its place, from neatly pressed shirts to shoes polished at home the night before. Individual style barely entered the conversation. The uniform wasn't about expression, it was about belonging. When everyone looked the same, no one stood out, and that felt strangely comforting. Behavior, too, was shared. If one pupil stepped out of line, the whole class might feel it. This idea of collective responsibility taught quiet lessons about awareness and self-control. You learned quickly that your actions affected others, and that alone kept many people in check. Perhaps most striking of all was how rarely adults were questioned. Teachers spoke, and pupils listened. Instructions weren't debated or explained, they were followed. Opinions came later in life. At school, learning your place mattered just as much as learning your sums. None of this felt unkind at the time. It was simply how school worked. Days ran on routine, predictability, and small rituals repeated without fuss. Looking back now, it can feel astonishingly strict, yet also oddly reassuring. These rules shaped how children moved, spoke, and even thought. And as we'll see, their influence didn't end at the classroom door. Those school rules didn't stay neatly behind the gates at the end of the day. They traveled home with us, quietly shaping how children saw the world. Independence came early. Many pupils were trusted to walk home alone, manage homework without reminders, and arrive on time without fuss. Responsibility wasn't explained in long conversations. It was expected. That sense of shared accountability followed people into adult life. At work, you didn't question every instruction. You learned the job, respected the structure, and got on with it. In families, routines mattered. Mealtimes, bedtimes, and manners reflected the same steady order learned in school corridors years earlier. Authority, too, was navigated with little negotiation. Adults were listened to, rules were followed, and disagreements were handled quietly. It wasn't about fear, it was about understanding where you stood. That clarity brought confidence for some and restraint for others. Today, the balance has shifted. Systems now bend to the individual. Voices are encouraged early, and rules often come with careful explanation. Neither approach is entirely right or wrong, but those older school rules left a deep imprint. They shaped habits, expectations, and attitudes that lasted a lifetime. To understand their true impact, we have to look not just at discipline, but at what it gave people in return. What we really remember isn't the rules themselves, but how they made us feel. There was comfort in knowing exactly where you stood, and reassurance in routines that rarely changed. Those classrooms gave many children resilience, patience, and a quiet confidence built on shared experience. Everyone knew the same expectations, wore the same clothes, and followed the same rhythms, creating a strong sense of belonging. Yet reflection also asks for balance. Today's schools offer something different and valuable in its own way. There is more care around individual needs, more space for voices to be heard, and greater understanding that children learn differently. Where once structure dominated, empathy now plays a larger role. Neither world is perfect, and neither should be dismissed. The past offered stability and shared identity. The present brings support and flexibility. Holding both truths together helps explain why memories of those classrooms still linger today softly. Would today's children even recognize that world? The silent corridors, the unquestioned routines, the certainty of it all can feel almost unreal now. Yet one day, today's classrooms will seem just as strange to future eyes. That is how time works. British school rules didn't just shape lessons and timetables, they shaped us. And in remembering them, we glimpse not just old classrooms, but the people we became. Along the way together, quietly and completely. For more of these unbelievable memories, tap the video on your screen. The 1970s stories are something else. Don't forget to subscribe.